If you are a little bit worried about the current circumstances in the world right now, or if you are a little bit worried about your own place and belonging in the world right now as an HSP, this is the episode for you.
Inluminance specializes in developing sensory processing sensitivity, a natural high sensory intelligence present in 30% of the population, co-creating with the power of humanity to consciously evolve towards balance.
Hello, and a very warm welcome to another episode in the Inluminance podcast with your host, Willow McIntosh, the founder of Inluminance and creator of the High Sensory Method. Now, let us look into this area of our place in the world and our place in our own communities, especially around our sense of self and around our sense of purpose. There's a message for you. There's something that I would love to relay to you about who you really are as an HSP and what's really possible for you in terms of making a difference and being seen and acknowledged for who you really are, which is one of the greatest challenges that I experienced myself in my own journey, and one that I had to really start to overcome and face in a way that allowed me to step forwards into the work that I do today as a facilitator. And it's being a facilitator that I would love for you to acknowledge and process a little bit when it comes to your sense of empowerment and your place in the world, especially when it comes to acknowledging your abilities. Facilitation is a really interesting topic. It comes from the Latin to make things easier. And in my experience, what we are really doing as facilitators is helping the natural flow of what's already there to flow in the way that it's trying to. So we might, as a facilitator, perhaps help a group of children to come together at a birthday party to play a game together. They all want to enjoy the game, and the game wants to be played. And so, as a facilitator, we are doing what's required to help that natural process to take place. As an HSP, we have exceptional abilities to facilitate, and our relationship with the spiritual, our relationship energetically, and our relationship with the greater purpose of what's taking place in front of us is an exceptional skill that we have. In whatever area of life you're most called to want to make a difference in is the area of life that you're naturally born to facilitate in. So let's say right now, let me just say that when it comes to observing what's happening in the world, the circumstances of the world, it's pretty scary. And it's actually always been scary. However, we are processing what's happening from our point of view in the current timeline that we're in right now. And I invite you to be careful around how much of the media that you are taking on board, especially what happens in social media. There is a lot of talk going on right now about whether or not the conversations that we observe or the arguments and heated debates that we see on social media are actually people that are having those debates, or whether they're bots and whether they're AI accounts that are having those discussions in order to emote a response from us for an interest group that is potentially facilitating those types of conversations. That is a very real thing that may well be happening in social media at the moment. So I very much invite you to monitor how much of the media on television, on radio, and on social media that you're taking on board. I'm sure as an HSP you're aware of the risks of that. But we have to be very careful about what we're being fed. Now, within that, there's going to be a particular area of life that really stands out for you. So for instance, in my case, this is very much around leadership and around how much I am fascinated by rebalancing tyrannical and toxic leadership. This is a part of my heart and being that I feel deeply called to want to support. I really want to do what I can in that area to help. And my way of doing that is by doing this. So the work that I do and the practice that I do, and in the content that I create, and literally what I'm saying right now, is to empower you to understand that as an HSP, you can start to come into ownership and build relationship with the ability that you have to make a difference in your own area of expertise. So when I refer to myself, I have an ability to facilitate and activate and align HSPs to come into awareness of their ability and bring that into service in the world, in an area that's most aligned and natural to them. And that's how I'm making a difference in my own way. So I'm trying to align and activate people in all areas, in all avenues of life, that helps to rebalance leadership so we can move the world towards peace and balance. Now that's a big undertaking, right? And I can't do that by myself. And if I focus on trying to rectify that by myself, then that's too overwhelming. So what I can do is I can make the difference that I can according to my ability to facilitate in the natural area of expertise that I'm designed to do so. So what I would love to help you to see is that the way in which you are processing the world more deeply, which is what makes you an HSP, is designed to facilitate a perspective in a very particular area of life. And you can find out what that area of life is by tuning into what really matters to you, the area of life that you've always been fascinated by, and it will also be the area of life that you are most challenged by. Once we start to understand that, it helps us to recognize that we have this natural facilitation ability. And what I'd love to do in this episode is talk a little bit around how I figured this out for myself and what it's actually like to facilitate as an HSP. This is not about facilitating or coaching in the usual context of the word. It is an ability to understand what flow really means. So if I was to give you an example of when I am facilitating an HSP in front of me and what happens when I'm doing that. So first of all, what I've learned to do over the years, I've been doing this for a long time now, and it takes time we're always in the evolution of our ability, which is amazing. And what's happened over the years as I've been in this, in this relationship with myself, what's happened is I have been able to develop an ability to hold a very particular focus and state in myself that allows me to facilitate at the level that I do. And that's also dictated by my own natural affinity for facilitation. And I've always really wanted to do that. That's been my calling. I love having deep conversations. I love seeing the greater meaning behind conversations. And I love to be able to facilitate conversations that help to empower people into a greater experience of their truth and their purpose. which is exactly why I'm talking to you about this right now. Because more than anything, I would love for you to listen to this and to recognize and start to get curious about your natural ability to do this as well. As HSPs, it's a conundrum because we're in this state of self-rejection a lot of the time because we're different, when actually we are harboring this profound ability to read and see the world at a deeper level, which allows us to facilitate highly effectively. So when I sit in front of a client, something magical happens in the space around me and from within me. I naturally understand the energetics that I need to hold in order for the person in front of me to relax and trust that they're in a safe space in order for what's naturally trying to occur. So when I am in the initial stages of a session, all I want to do more than anything is help the person in front of me to feel as comfortable and as safe as I possibly can, in order for them to be able to open to the natural flow that's happening within them. As human beings, we are naturally designed for a particular purpose. So we have a natural competence in the world, and life is trying to utilize us as a channel in that very particular area to fulfill an outcome that we've been designed for. We all have that natural level of competence, and we all have that drive to want to serve in that area of competence, whether it's through designing clothes, whether it's cleaning shoes, whether it's building bridges, or whether it's facilitating people. All of us have a natural area of competence in an area of life that deeply fascinates us. So what's happening when I'm facilitating is there is a knowing within me, there is an ability within me that knows that at a much deeper level than my conscious mind and sees that at a much deeper level than my conscious mind. So what happens, and often what happens is people come in front of me on Zoom where they've booked a discovery call with me. I've never met them before. And in the initial first few seconds of meeting them, a lot happens in my awareness. I start to read and see and feel a great deal about the truth of the person that's in front of me. I can feel what's not real. I can feel when they're telling me story, and I can feel when they're telling me authenticity. I can feel the difference between those two frequencies that are occurring in that person's body as they are speaking from that place within them. My high sensory intelligence allows me to formulate the right questions to ask them in order for them to understand the truth that's occurring within them, or I ask the right questions that allows them to deepen their awareness into the reality that's within them. And that opens them up to this flow. It opens them up to their own intelligence and to the intelligence that is trying to operate through them in order for them to fulfill their role and to fulfill their purpose in the world. So whilst all that might sound, lofty, or it might sound complicated, or you might think, well, crumbs, I don't know how to do any of that. I didn't know how to do any of that when I began. It's not as though I ordered those things, chose them on a menu. It's not as though I kind of, saw someone else do it somewhere else and thought, wow, that's cool. That's the job I'm going to do now. These were natural abilities that simply occur in me. And that is what I have observed in all of the 350 plus people, it's close to 370 now, over the last 8 years that I've trained to take ownership of this facilitation ability that they have. That is a natural gift that I have. It is humbling. It blows my mind every time I sit in front of someone, I facilitate them, and they say things to me like, how do you know this? How can you see this? It is an ability that, more than anything, I deeply wish that we as HSPs really embrace and understand. And unfortunately, the confusion is, or what the challenge is that as HSPs, we're in our day-to-day life. But before we get this kind of self-initiation, if you like, into understanding these abilities, what tends to happen for us is we are living this false reality, this false sense of self, where we're trying to make things work. We're trying to, we're trying to fit in, and we're trying to, we're trying to make things work in the same way that other people make things work around us, whether it's through our career or through our business, whether it's through our relationships, through our community. And what's happening is we're often operating from this false identity that we have learned to be in order to be accepted. And that's, when we're children, there's no other choice. We have to do that. But as adults, the opportunity right now that I'm, really encouraging you to explore is that you have a much deeper reality that's happening within you that allows you to access a very important skill set, especially when it comes to facilitation. And again, if you're thinking about, well, I don't really understand that word, just think about that as making things easy for the flow to naturally occur. So you might be fascinated by whatever it may be. Maybe it is to do with the clothing industry. Maybe you feel really called to want to bring balance to the clothing industry, and you want to, manage resources properly and help people to understand how we can clothe people sustainably. You will have a powerful natural ability in being able to facilitate that kind of outcome. So if you were to sit in front of a group of people who design clothing, or who are in charge of the operation of creating clothing, you will find something magical happening. You will notice and feel the greater truth that's trying to work its way through those people, and you will be able to understand how each of those people fit into the puzzle of that outcome that's trying to occur. You'll be able to feel whether someone's in alignment and in truth around their purpose, in what they're trying to create in the clothing industry, or whether they're not. And you will be able to read energetically what's naturally trying to occur. So as human beings, we're not separate from the greater energetic reality. We are an integrated part of the greater whole. And all of the activity that's happening in the world is part of that greater consciousness. And that greater consciousness is utilizing us to be able to achieve those things. And either we're in alignment with that, or we're blocking that. Either we're in the truth of the greater flow, or either we're in relationship with the greater flow that's trying to work through us, or we're running our own agenda that causes so much of the difficulties in the world, where we have people that are all about greed and take, and it's all about me, and how we're actually blocking that natural flow that's trying to take place, and the intelligence of life that's trying to create balance through us. You can actually feel how that's happening. And this is what I would really love for you to explore, that you're able to observe what this natural flow of truth is trying to do around you. Whether it is in your local community, whatever context it is, I just invite you to switch perception and let go of that narrative that we have that, oh, I'm sensitive and things are overwhelming for me, and I've got to try and fit in and I've got to push really hard to make everything work for me. Rather than switching into the awareness of what you're actually witnessing from a perspective point of view, and starting to recognize the value of what you're seeing and learning to utilize and communicate that in a way that actually deeply benefits you and the people around you. When we make that shift, it is quite literally life-changing. It allows us to understand our value. It allows us to understand what empowerment means when we acknowledge our abilities. As HSPs, if we are not acknowledging our abilities, it's very difficult to find a sense of empowerment. And that then affects our place and belonging and meaning in the world, and it also makes us feel victimized or incredibly weak when we observe the greater problems that are happening in the world. So we have an opportunity, rather than trying to take on all the problems that are happening in the world, is to think, well, what's the area of life that I'm actually deeply interested and fascinated by? And let me pursue that and see how I'm naturally gifted to facilitate flow in that area. And that is where everything becomes incredibly meaningful and empowering. We understand our sense of value. And that is how we can really start to make a change and start to make a difference in the world. Thank you for listening. If you would like to open up a conversation about this, then please begin it in the comments below. If you're listening to this on YouTube, I will respond to you, I will support you, and I would love to hear from you in how this conversation is evolving for you. I very much look forward to seeing you next time. Take lots of care. Bye for now.